Good afternoon, everyone. This is Gopal here. I'll be the host and the moderator for today's webinar. First of all, welcome to today's webinar sponsored by S2H. And our topic today is Put a Lid on Runaway Data Growth. To set a background, the amount of data that's being stored, administered, and protected by organizations is exploding like never before. So are the costs to manage it and the valuable resources that are being diverted to control and manage data growth. In this webinar, we will discuss the best practice to manage enterprise data growth and how IBM's product, Optim, helps you overcome the challenges of data growth effectively. First, a little bit of housekeeping. We want to ensure that we are addressing the main topics of the webinar as well as your questions. You can post your questions at any time using the GoToWebinar control panel. You have a section to post questions. We'll be addressing those queries at the end of the session. The webinar will be recorded and will be hosted at s2a.com in next few days. First, let us learn a bit more about our speaker today. Our speaker today is Sharan Kumar. He's a senior consultant and heads the information lifecycle management for S2A. Sharan Kumar has been with S2A for about 4 years, and he has worked extensively for many implementations of Optim across many countries in data archival, data management, data masking, and data decommissioning for various customers in various industries. The next slide. And to brief about the agenda today, I would discuss what S2A is all about and what exactly is data growth. That's something that Sharan would be taking up, and what is Optim all about and how it helps you in your archival and what's the best solution for the data growth solution. To begin with, S2A was incorporated 10 years back. It was started out in 2005. And we are headquartered out of Silicon Valley in US. We have offices in UK, Canada, UAE, and India. We are about 400 plus employees worldwide, and we are growing rapidly as well. And S2A is IBM's go-to partner for implementing the IBM Optim across the globe again. And we have successfully executed about 250 odd Optim implementations across. And we specialize in Oracle EBIS, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and Siebel archival using IBM Optim. Not only are we the implementation partners for these products, but we are also development partners with IBM for the same. And I would actually hand it over to Sharan now, who will actually go through the entire webinar technical aspect of it.
Thank you, Gopal. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Sharan. Before proceeding further, I would like to thank everyone for joining this webinar. As Gopal said, now I'm going to brief about something on one of the major IT issues called data growth and what all its consequences and how IBM Optim tool is going to help the business. So let's begin. The data growth is a process of continuously accumulating the inactive data which is created by the end user on day-to-day business, but which doesn't carry any importance in the day-to-day business cycle. But even though it sits along with the data which is still active, and thus creates a very huge volume of inactive data in the production systems. That huge volume of data not only storage requirement, but it also creates some negative impacts as well. And those are, it drastically degrades the application performance, and it requires more space storage, and some of the maintenance costs might be going high. And those are like, it might take more time for cloning and more time for upgrading and applying patches. I hope I am loud and clear. So moving to the next slide. In the previous slide, I spoke about the IT challenge called data growth and what all its negative impacts on the business. So what would be the best possible solution for that? That is the data archive. By doing the historical inactive data, we can achieve the optimized performance in the application side by segregating the historical inactive data. And by doing that, the business can meet the service level agreements consistently, and it can accelerate the delivery of revenue generating applications as well. And even though the inactive data is archived, still the business users can accurately respond for the audits and e-discovery requests as well. And by doing the archival, it will control some of the IT investment costs, like it will reduce the storage space, and the archive can be stored in a cheaper storage devices as well. Moving to the next slide. Till now, I spoke about one of the IT challenges, that is data growth and its consequences, and the solution for that is by doing the data archival. So let's understand what exactly the data archive means and how it is going to help the business. As I said, the data archiving is an intelligent way of segregating the historical data into a cheaper storage devices by maintaining the data referential integrity and providing the future access as well. Let's consider you have a production database which has got some active data and huge volume of inactive data. So when you perform the data archival for that huge volume of inactive data, that inactive data can be loaded into an archive database, and as and when required by the user, it can be loaded back to the production either entirely or by doing the subset of archive data, or from the application directly we can give the access for the archive databases, or from the reporting tools we can give the access for archive databases. Moving to the next slide. Here comes the slide which talks about the core topic of today's webinar, that is the IBM Optim tool. Organization can leverage Optim tool to address multiple IT issues like the data growth solution which is provided by the Optim, and that is the core topic of today's discussion. Along with data growth solution, Optim also provides the solutions like test data management, where it provides the realistic subset of data for the testing environments to speed up the testing processes, and it will also help the business in producing the high quality testing results. Optim also provides the data privacy solution where it meets the PCI compliances, PII and other compliance rules, where it manages the sensitive and confidential information like credit card number, customer information and other PII information by masking them. And last but not the least, data decommissioning solution. Optim also helps in retiring the legacy applications by providing the data decommissioning solution. In the upcoming days, we do have webinars on TDM, data privacy and decommissioning solutions as well. So feel free to join those webinars as well. Moving to the next slide. Here comes one of the important slides to understand about archive and what is how it is going to help the business. You might be having a thought or question about, I do have a practice of taking the backup, so what is the requirement to go for archive? So backup and archive are both are different entities and the approach would be different. So let's understand what backup exactly means and how archive is different from backup. Backup keeps everything as a clone or a copy of the original system, and it includes all its components like versions, interface changes and even the customization changes as well. Since it copies everything, it takes out the complete data model itself, and it has a very huge dependency on the IT teams like system admins, database admins, etc. Since in the backup it copies everything, in the day-to-day business the data present in the backup might not be useful, and sometimes loading backed up data into the production might go expensive. Coming to archive, in the archive process the approach would be, it is keeping what is required for the future use to address any government litigations, audit requests or any e-discovery requests. So it's a self-contained data. Even though it is going to subset from the production, subset the data from the production and archive it from the production, it takes care of the referential integrity, and that archive data is available as and when the business needs it, and the archived data will be stored in a cheaper storage devices as well. By doing archival, you can reduce the time taken for the backups in turn. So in turn, archive is going to help the backup itself. So backup has got its own significance when in certain cases, like when you do the application upgrades, applying fixes and patches. Moving to the next slide. This slide mainly talks about the Optim compatibility with the different systems. The first and foremost is Optim is compatible with all the operating systems like Windows, Sun Solaris, Linux, and etc. Once Optim performs the archival activity, it can store the compressed archive data in a cheaper storage devices like SAN, NAS, and even offline storage devices like optical discs and even tapes as well. Optim can perform its best at all the market leading database softwares like Oracle, SQL Server, Sybase, Informix, etc. Not only for the data growth solution, Optim is compatible with other solutions like application retirement, test data management, data privacy as well. Optim can perform its solutions, Optim can implement its solutions across all the enterprise applications, packaged applications, and even custom developed applications as well. As Westway, we do have the out-of-box solution for Oracle eBusiness, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and Siebel CRM. And we do develop the archival solution, masking and test data management solutions for custom developed as well as packaged and enterprise applications as well. Thus, IBM Optim 2 is an integrated modular environment to manage the enterprise application data from its requirements to retirement across all the heterogeneous environments. I am moving to the next slide. This slide mainly depicts about the enterprise architecture of Optim. In a real-time implementation, Optim deals with a client-server architecture. Optim client is installed and configured at the workstation where the archival request will be triggered, and the Optim server is taking care of all the archiving and purging the historical or inactive data from different application databases. Once the data is archived, by default, Optim keeps all the archived data in a compressed immutable binary file format, and we call it as archive file. And based on business needs, we can load that archive data into multiple non-production databases as well. Also, Optim has a feature to provide the access for archived data by directly connecting to the archive files to get access from the application or from any of the reporting tools like business objects, crystal reports, Cognos, etc. Or in case of any business requirements or any DBA requirement or any user requirement, even the archive data from archive files can be loaded into any desktop file formats like MS Excel, SQL, or even like XML documents as well. Moving to the next slide. This slide mainly talks about automating the archive process and moving the archive data from the production tiered storage to multiple tiered storages. As a best practice, we could keep the current year plus previous year data in the production database system, and the rest data would be ideal candidate for data archival. Once that data is archived, we can keep that data for about 3 to 4 years in a tier 2 level storage devices in a compressed archive files, and those would be ideally NAS or SAN. Once it meets that criteria as well, we can move that archive data into tier 2, tier 3 storage devices like Centera, IBM RS550. As an ideal or the standard method of archival, once the data expires about 7+ years, it's a good candidate for final purging. And before purging, if we can retain for the access for about 1 or 2 years in offline storage devices like optical discs or tapes. As I said, Optim keeps the archive data in a compressed archive file formats, and the compression ratio from the Optim would be about 70 to 95%. Moving to the next slide. This slide depicts the real-time business scenario for implementing the data archival solution. Let's assume you have multiple production systems. One would be carrying the application which maintains the CRM application in Oracle or under Unix environment, and the second one would be having all the finance related data like order entry, invoice payments in under a ZOS with DB2 database, and the last one would be having a accounting entries in a DB2 database under Linux environment. So when we plan for implementing the data archival solution in such a heterogeneous environment, if we plan for archiving data for that particular customer which is present in the CRM system, and the transactional data would be in the rest of the two systems. So Optim will be capable of copying the reference data from the CRM application and rest of the inactive transactional data from both of those databases by maintaining the referential integrity, and after archiving it can create a common or a single access for all the archive data, and thus it helps in meeting the service level agreements for the archive data, and also helps in moving the archive data in a cheaper storage devices as well. Moving to the next slide. This slide talks about complete business object, how Optim is going to meet the complete business object or complete data model for a subset of data. When we plan for data archival, as a solution expert, we will be thinking on the different user perspective. For example, in DBA, we will be thinking data present in tables whether they are referentially intact or not. In case of business, whether for the historical transaction records, the historical reference is maintained or not. Similarly, the data can be spread across multiple databases like Oracle, DB2, etc. So while archiving, to create the data model, whether Optim is capable of doing a federated access on that data or not. Once the solution is developed, is there any related documents at the OS level like file attachments in the server side file systems? Optim still takes care of all the file attachments for the archival. So once the data is archived, it will keep the referential integrity for the file as well to access for the future use. Moving to the next slide. This slide takes us more deeper into the complete business object again. In this one, it considers about one of the finance module called general ledger. When we plan for the data archival, we will be targeting for the different kind of tables present in each of the production databases. In case of general ledger, the tables will be having all the historical transactional data like GL batches, GL lines in case of general ledger are highlighted in yellow color. And to meet the referential integrity, some data we need to copy for the archive database as well. So those tables are highlighted in purple and green color. And some tables might not be part of archive process itself. Those are highlighted in blue color. I hope things are clear till now. So moving forward. Till now I spoke about how the data archival is carried on, how Optim is, what is the approach on data archival by the Optim tool. In this slide, I'm going to brief about accessing the archive data from the Optim. Optim provides a feature to access the archive data from the applications directly, or we can load the archive data back to the production for the business need based on requirement, or it also provides the access of archive data directly from the archive files itself. It helps in creating the ODBC, JDBC data sources for connecting for the different reporting tools like Cognos, Crystal reports, business objects, etc. As I said earlier, even we can load the archive data to MS Excel, CSV and other file formats as well. Thus, Optim provides a universal access for archive data anytime, anywhere by authenticating the user. Moving to the next slide. In this one, let's consider you have a production database of 500 GB. So the same 500 GB will be carried in non-production environments in the form of cloning for the development or testing environments. So if we have around 5 different non-production environments which are cloned from the production, then the same 500 GB will be carried into all the 5 different environments. In total, you will require about 3 TB of storage space. So if you implement data archival solution on the production side, so if you have inactive data of about 300 GB of data, once you do the archive on the production, it will reduce the production size by about 200 GB. So when you do the clone for that production into non-production environments, the same 200 GB will be carried into all the non-production environments. So finally, the storage will be reduced by about 60% and you might be require about only 1.2 TB of storage. Moving to the next slide. This slide summarizes about all the advantages of IBM Optim archival solution. The first and foremost is it improves the application performance and helps the business in meeting the service level agreements, and it will control the storage costs since it keeps the archives in a compressed format, and it will reduce the maintenance burdens, like it will reduce the time taken for the cloning, upgradation, applying patches, and it will also help in access the archive data for any future audit responses or any e-discovery requests. Moving to the next slide. This slide depicts the Optim user interface for browsing the archive data using browse utility of Optim tool. Moving to the next slide. In this slide, it depicts about our different esteemed customers who are getting benefit from the Optim solutions and from different domains like financial domain, insurance, retail, telecom industry, pharmaceutical industries, and even from chemical industries as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I think it is very impressive and it has given a very good insight on how data growth challenges can be met using Optim. Before we go to the questions, a gentle reminder that the webinar will be posted on s2a.com in the upcoming days. And of course, after the webinar, if you have any further inquiries, please do mail us at sales@s2a.com. We'll now go to the questions from the floor and also take up new questions. Sharon, I've got a question here. The question goes this way. How do you maintain data integrity while doing archiving, especially across the modules?
It's a good question. For some of the enterprise applications like Oracle e-business, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and Siebel, as I said during the presentation, we have out-of-box solution. And if we come across any customized applications, we do take care of the existing data model and the relationships between the tables, and we prepare the solution accordingly, and thus meeting the referential integrity.
I hope that answers the question. There's one more question. How do you configure archive data to be viewed from the application? Is there any customization to be done at the application level?
As I answered in the previous, for the previous question, for the out-of-box solution, it comes with a pre-configured steps to view the archive data from the application. There it would be required some tweaking at the application side as well as from the Optim side to view the archive data. In case of custom applications, we might need to see what data is exactly required by the application and in what form. If it is required only at the reporting, Optim provides a feature to give the access for any reporting tools, or in case of application, we might see what kind of application it is and how to give the access for that.
Thank you, Sharon. And there's one more question. Do you really require a downtime for archiving, since the archiving is happening for old transactions?
Not exactly. We don't need any downtime for performing the archival activity. And again, even for purging the historical data from the production, we don't need any downtime unless it is impacting any of the performance issues. Otherwise, we are good to go ahead when the system is up and running.
So any more questions that you would like to ask, please do post it. I think I've read out all the questions that have been posted. So I think that's pretty much about it, Sharon. And once again, thank you for attending. To review this webinar and learn more, please visit www.s28.com. And thank you. We'll now be ending the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.